Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are taking a look at yet another of the Mattel Jurassic World figures, and this is the Parasaurolophus. It's one that was very highly anticipated by many people, myself included. I just absolutely could not wait for this figure to come out because I am a big Hadrosaur fan. And not to mention, Parasaurolophus, I think, is one of the more underrated species in the Jurassic movies. So I was super excited to find out that Mattel was making one, and was heavily into trying to keep up with all the updates as far as this figure goes as it was coming along. And here it is, now finally for all of us here. It is the Dual Attack Dino Rivals Parasaurolophus from Mattel. And I am definitely quite impressed with it. However, I think it's maybe not quite as nice as I was expecting it to be, but still it is a very cool figure. Regardless, I already have taken it out of the box because I just could not wait, so we can take a look at the box itself. Of course, we've got the Rex and Triceratops here and the Dino Rivals symbol right there, and then Owen, of course, glaring at us like a weirdo. And then here's the back of the box. You can see the Parasaurolophus itself showing the tail strike action and the head strike action. And of course down here in the corner you've got a picture of the Triceratops and Concavinator. And then you of course have the card inside here, which I have not removed yet, so I will do that right now. So here is the Parasaurolophus card itself. I actually really quite like it, aside from the awkward looking hands, as the hands really kind of remind me of a predator. I don't know why they made the hands look that way. I don't have any idea. They're very strange looking, but regardless, the card is still pretty cool. Has the usual stats that you get for all the Dino Rivals figures, and then the Dino Rivals and Jurassic World logos on the back, so pretty cool regardless of the odd creepy hands. And here is the Parasaurolophus itself, and again, like I said, it's honestly not quite as nice as I was expecting it to be, but it is still pretty darn nice. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at it. So if we start up here at the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt is pretty good, but it's honestly not quite as detailed as I was expecting it to be. As I turn it, you can really see a lot of the very minute small details, but I just feel like a lot of the head sculpts of some of the other Jurassic World figures were just a little more detailed, I think, than the head sculpt here of the Parasaurolophus. The actual crest, however, is really nicely detailed. It looks quite beautiful. You can see a seam up there where it was connected, but it's not a big deal. You almost don't even notice it at all. I think the coloration overall on the head is really beautifully done. It's got that very bright yellow there, and then you can see some hints of red, and then of course the brown crest. So there is a few different shades of coloration included up here on the head, which is a definite plus to see when it comes to Mattel figures, because they are more often than not very basic when it comes to their paint. You can see the nostrils are very nicely sculpted out up here on the snout area. And the mouth itself seems to have some pretty good sculpt work, but you can't really get inside to see. It's very small. And with the actual first dinosaur so far that Mattel has created, that's one of these larger figures anyway that I know of, there is no paint on the inside of the mouth as far as the tongue or anything goes. So it's a little bit of a downside, but the mouth is so small, it's really hard to get in there to even see whether there's paint or not, so I guess it's not too big of a deal. The paint on the eye is pretty well placed, shockingly, because Mattel has a pretty big problem with that. And I've seen a few of these so far, and I haven't seen any big issues. You can see it's not absolutely perfect, but for the most part, it's pretty much on spot. And I'm not a very big fan of the eyes, honestly, because I don't really like the coloration of the pupil being just the same coloration as the body. I went over this with the Protoceratops that they had, that light blue version where the eyes kind of made it look like it was possessed, and it's a similar look, I think, as far as this Parasaurolophus goes, where it just looks very strange because there is no real pupil color. It's basically just the same coloration as the rest of the body. As we start to move down the neck, though, you can see that the actual skin detail and sculpt work is really beautifully done. It looks very much so like a large animal and looks beautifully sculpted. You can see a few little osteoderms and stuff in the lower part of the neck, but for the most part the paint applied looks pretty nice as well. Very natural, so the sculpt and paint of the whole neck area looks fantastic, honestly, in my opinion. Even the underside looks really good. We come down into the shoulder, you can kind of see the shoulder blade protruding from the skin a little, and then we move down into the arm, and you can actually see that there is a pretty significant difference in coloration between the body and the arm. The arm is a much brighter yellow, whereas the body is a little bit more of a dull yellow, closer to what you actually see on the Parasaurolophus in the Lost World. But looking at the actual detail and sculpting of the arm, you can see it's pretty nicely sculpted. Very nice skin detailed. Again, the hands are really nice, much nicer than you see on the awkward looking card that was included. And again, you can see some of those little black speckles that Mattel loves to include on their figures, just kind of here and there, kind of giving it some alternate coloration, just some variation of color. You can see that those dark brown stripes continue to run down the length of the side here. Some very nice osteoderms up here on the top. And there are those black speckles, again, you can see all over the place. Really quite rampant on this figure. Those black speckles are pretty much everywhere. But the skin detail and everything here on the side looks great. As I turn it, you can really see just how nicely sculpted the skin detail is on the figure. I really think that the sculpting of the actual skin in the neck, from the neck down, really is incredible. I think the only area that's really missing is the head as far as beautiful sculpt, and it's not that it's bad, it's just this face area seems a little, I don't know, smooth, not like there could be more detail and should be more detail, and it's something that I expected out of Mattel, but they didn't really deliver too much. Not saying that the face sculpt is bad, because it is by no means bad. It's really nice, but it's just not quite as nice as I was expecting. You can see some skin folds and stuff down here, and the underside detail is actually really nice as well. Beautiful sculpting of the skin and texturing of the skin there as well. And then we move here into the thigh of the rear leg. You can see very nice musculature, and some more of those brown stripes are kind of running down the leg. As we come down here, the kneecap is somewhat present, and then we get to the calf muscles. They're not super huge, but they're definitely pretty nicely defined. And then we come down into the foot, and the foot sculpt looks pretty good, kind of. I think it looks good right here from this shot, but when I look at it from the side, I feel like maybe the foot might be a little too thick, but that might just be my opinion. Overall, though, they don't look bad, and the nails are pretty nicely painted. There is no paint on the nails of the front legs or hands, whatever you want to refer to them as, but the rear legs do have paint on the nails. And then we come up here, going toward the tail. Again, you can see a few skin folds there, right behind the leg, and then again that beautiful skin detail runs out the entire length of the leg, and you can again see that the coloration changes, whereas we have this more pale yellow, and then we get to this much brighter yellow here at the end, at the tip of the tail, and again on this rear leg as well. I did not mention that before, but that brown stripe runs the length of the tail for the most part, and that's a big plus as far as this figure goes, is because Mattel loves to stop the paint before it ever reaches the tail, but they did go through with it here on this figure. And again, as I've said previously in other Mattel reviews, if you look at one side of the figure, the other side is probably going to look just the same. But the only difference here would really be the front arm is sculpted in a different position, as this one is down on the ground, but it looks fantastic. The overall sculpting of this arm really beautifully done. Very nice musculature, and you can almost make out the bone structure of the arm itself. So really great job that they've done there. The beautiful skin detail is really nicely done on this side also, and you can again see some more of those speckles that are pretty much all over the place. And the beautiful detail runs out the entire length of the tail. The paint is really nicely applied on this side as well, and overall I really dig the paint job on this, as it is based off of the Lost World Jurassic Park version of Parasaurolophus, and I love that. There is the Jurassic Facts code for anybody that might be interested in it. Another thing that I am a pretty big fan of when it comes to this figure is the fact that it is in a quadrupedal position. I love a nice Parasaurolophus on all fours. I think it looks really cool. I love also the fact that they've included it in a stance where it's kind of just walking along very leisurely, and they just overall have done a great job on the pose and everything of this figure. For a size, from the head to the tail, you are looking at about a little over 11.5 inches, or almost about 29.5 centimeters. And for a height, you are looking at about a little over 4.25 inches, or about 11 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, and you can see that this Parasaurolophus can really hold its own here. It's a pretty big figure, and definitely bigger than the Papo Rex. Not by much, but a little bit bigger, I would say. But regardless, it is still a very, very nicely sized figure. Again, similar to Rorovor size, but probably just a little bit bigger, I think. And for another size comparison, we've brought in an oldie but a goodie, and this is the Mattel Parasaurolophus next to the Kenner Parasaurolophus. I will say that unquestionably, in my opinion, the Kenner Parasaurolophus is better than the Mattel Parasaurolophus. I just think that the overall sculpting and detail on the Kenner one is incredible and really matches, especially with the shape of the body, to the way that the Parasaurolophus looked in the Lost World Jurassic Park. But that is not to say that this Mattel one is bad, because it is by no means a bad figure. It is a really beautiful rendition, again, of the Parasaurolophus. And honestly, if you happen to have the older Kenner version, these two make an incredible pair. They really look cool together, and I love both of these figures. As far as articulation goes on this, there is some very slight articulation in the neck where the neck connects to the head, but not very much at all. It's actually pretty hard to move. The arms, of course, are articulated. They come out away from the body, and then forward and back. The legs also come out a little bit. They're a little stiff, and then they go forward and back. And then there is articulation in the tail, and then the neck, of course, because of the action features, which are the front button has the head going up and down like that, a head strike action, and then the tail is with the second button, and the movement overall is pretty cool. I definitely like it. I don't think the Parasaurolophus would be doing too much headbutting, so this is more or less just if he's going to take a drink or eat some plants or foliage. But regardless, that is pretty much all of the articulation in this figure. So without a doubt, this is another great Mattel release. It's not as good as I was expecting it to be, but it is not a bad figure at all. There's only just really, the only real letdown is basically the face sculpt. I just think that some more detail could have been included, and it's fairly smooth, as opposed to being a little more highly detailed, similar to what you could see on the Kenner figure. But at the same time, it is still really nicely sculpted, and the overall body is just fantastically sculpted, especially the skin detail I am a big fan of. I definitely like the fact that there's a lot of color variation in this figure compared to what you would normally see on a Mattel figure as well, because you have the brown that runs down onto the beak and crest area. You also have a little hint of red on the face, again with that yellow, and then you've got a darker red on the neck. You've got the brown stripes. The overall body is like a lighter yellow, and then the legs and end of the tail there are a little bit of a brighter yellow. The face actually is a little bit of a brighter yellow as well. And then the underside is white, so there is a lot of difference in coloration on this figure compared to most Mattel releases. The body color, as far as the brighter yellow and the somewhat dull yellow that you can see here on camera, isn't quite as noticeable in person. They almost look like they are the same coloration, but they aren't. If you actually get it in a good light, you can definitely tell the difference. But regardless, I think that the paint looks beautiful. It looks very natural, very nicely done. Doesn't look like paint, it looks like body color. So that is a definite plus for this figure. And again, the sculpting is really beautifully done. Maybe not as good as it could be with the face, but the overall body as a whole, I think, just looks fantastic. The eyes are kind of a bother to me because they do look very strange, especially with the pupil being the same yellow that is on the body. I think they could have done a better job with that, as that was a pretty big problem for me with the initial Protoceratops release, but again, it's not something that's going to kill off this figure for me. I still think it is a fantastic Parasaurolophus. So if you do want to buy one, just head to your local Walmart and pick one up there. They run about $15. I don't know for sure if Target will be carrying these quite yet, but as of right now, I know Walmart is, so your best bet is to just give Walmart a shot, because this is still a very nice Parasaurolophus from Mattel. So go ahead and head over to Walmart, try to pick one up, and please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.